maybe just talk about it. I'll be doing that in the evening. Cool. So we have the slides ready. Over to you, Shadab.
Cool. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So, as I said earlier, today, data security is one concept where everyone thinks about security as a friction layer. Hey, like security is going to be more of governance, risk, compliance, and we are startups. We don't want to get there. We don't have bureaucratic process in place. We want to move fast. My talk is about how to have data security in a startup without compromising anything. Mostly catering to this audience, it's going to be just talking about database security, data platform security, and microservices architecture security. There are tons of more things that needs to be going in data security, but we'll just focus there. About me, I'm currently responsible for security at Hotstar. Previously, I was with Ola, where I did a lot of things, and before that with Adobe and Flipkart. What I love to do is solve security at scale. That's why I'm here. So we are in a data conference. If I ask you this question, you're like, obviously, this is the point where you're here, right? My question is, do you understand you get all your data insights in a data pipeline from this data and tons of more signals? But do you categorize these data into these categories? Because that's where the data security plays in. Where probably getting from name, you infer a gender, from account PAN number, you figure out how much can we give him credit, tons of things you could do. Then you have your business information, then you have your proprietary information. So the point is, this data exists in your database, your analytics DB, your data platform, all across. And we haven't segregated it, we haven't tagged this. And if you're one of those startups who are looking to go into UK and where there's GDPR, you're going to have a big problem, right? And if you don't have this, so there have been talks of how do you set up data pipeline from day one of your startup. This is one important thing where you don't have to do anything much, but if you could just tag your data in these three thumbs, PII, business data, and proprietary information, is going to help you in a very long run. How? I'm going to walk you through. So today's agenda would be, I'll give you a glimpse of what's data security. I'll skim through it just to give you guys a flavor of it, not dive deep in. Then why is it important? What's happening around with data security across the world? How did I do data security for database, data pipeline, and microservice architecture at a scale in my last organization? Key metrics to measure, and a bit of gyan as well, right? Understanding data security. Okay, what is data security? A Wikipedia definition says data security means that we protect data from unwanted, unauthorized use by unauthorized persons or a breach, right? There are tons of ways you could do it, from tokenization, encryption, hashing, a lot more ways that you could do. But typically, data security means this. But then how do we do it in a conference like Fifth Elephant, right? Because all of us work with a lot of data. And if that data goes out, it becomes a big problem. Why? You guys can read. That's a Facebook post. That's an Amazon thing that's happening. There are websites who are selling you database with 95% accuracy. Some websites are selling for database of females. Everything possible in terms of email IDs, phone, everything. Okay. Now, how do they get this data? There are 1,000 ways you could do it. One image that you see is you could have your public S3 opens, S3 buckets open. Other is, think of this. If you have hubs, like from an e-commerce or last mile delivery, they have all the data of your customers as well, the hub manager, right? Then there are more ways where someone could do it. So how it happens is another problem to solve. But the point is, this data is all out there. You may not know it. Your data could be here up as well. How someone is getting it and how do you secure it is something I'm going to walk you through. Before that, why we are talking about this now? 3 days back, Equifax has a settlement because of the data breach, where they were all secured, but because of a third-party library, they got breached, the data went out, and they're doing a $700 million settlement. Facebook got fined for $5 billion. Google, British Airways, Marriott, all of them are getting fined, okay? And this is just not UK, this is US and everywhere. The problem comes India. Why India? Sorry. Because we do not have any regulatory compliance in India. If your data goes out, apart from the reputation of the company, there is nothing much at stake. There are no fines, there are no laws, there is no regulatory compliance. Yes, the company reputation takes a hit. Couple of statistics before we understand everything. We had 12,500 data breaches last year. It takes 6 to 7 months to identify a data breach for companies who have enough data security things set up, and 69 days to contain it. These are cost numbers, and I'm not talking about the Aadhaar breach because it's still yes and no, okay? This example where the cost of data breach in India is just above Brazil, okay? Where everyone, if the data breach happens, they do something. In India, because the way we have been set up, there is nothing much, and we're just above Brazil in terms of what could happen to us if a data breach happens to a company, right? And we should be probably moving up, just not in terms of how do we value our data, but how do we take measures to protect it. Just a quick, like 2 slides of why it's a failure in a startup. One big reason is where the point of contention is, hey, I'm a small startup. Like I have probably 50 engineers. Can we do it when we grow big? The answer to that is 43% of attacks happens on small corporations because everyone knows you're a soft target. You won't have done anything much. So from a founder perspective or the CTO perspective, hey, let's figure security out when we grow big, but then you're the soft target as well, right? Since 2013, of all the data breaches that have happened, if you break down the numbers, it comes to 3 billion records have been stolen every day. That means 44 seconds of records are stolen every second. Like right now, as I'm speaking, 44 records have been stolen. Like that's the scale of things happening across the world. It's just that we are agnostic to it. Okay, it's not my company, but you never know when we put up there, right? And security is gonna be big thing. This is one graph from Information is Beautiful, where they show you all the breaches that have happened from 2009 to latest. The bigger the bubble is, the bigger the data breach that happened to that company. And here you could see from Facebook, Google, Amazon, US military, defense, everyone is here. So don't think, hey, if Facebook couldn't do it, we couldn't do it. Like anyone who doesn't matter who you are, this could happen to you, okay? And like Facebook, Google being probably in the top 2019 itself from Twitter and everyone, right? Okay, so what all I have next is something that I did in my last organization, Ola. Why it was, so think of this. On one day I woke up and I thought, aaj to kuch tufani karte hain. And I said, let's encrypt all our PII data. So you guys know what's PII now. I said, let's encrypt all our PII data so no one within the company and outside can ever have access to PII data, okay? Now, when I say that, that means Ola was already into existence for last 7 years. That means the challenges that I had, we were in 110 cities, okay? Every city follows their own structure. People have access to MySQL in a certain manner. They have a lot of PI information within the city. Analysts has all the information for the city to do all of this. There have been dashboard for finance and everyone set up to measure everything. There have been internal portals that have been built on PII and everything, right? When I say I'm going to encrypt PII, that means all of that going to break. That means I'm going to change everything Ola has done so far just because I'm going to encrypt the PII. And that's a big change that we had to go through, and we actually did. So think of a company who worked like this to be one of the first company to be GDPR compliant last year. We had to go through a lot of this, and this is something that we did a year before GDPR even existed. Okay, so now you got a problem of how many things that we got to change just to encrypt all the PII within the company and outside. Okay, so no employee even get access to PII data, from engineers to everything. So there are a lot of things that we did in terms of how city processes happen. A lot of city processes were like city teams, they are local folks calling drivers, telling me about the survey or doing all of those things. A lot of things has to be changed. So what we did is we bucketized everything into 3 buckets. Okay, tech, where how do we solve everything at tech, where everyone has access to databases, data pipeline, and everywhere other places, internal portals, and everything exists there, right? And it's all access to everyone because we are a startup. We want to trust everyone. That's the philosophy we follow. And there were, in terms of operation, there were certain things we wanted to do. Traditionally, we wanted to fix a lot of things, right? My talk would be just focusing on database, data platform, and microservices architecture. Now, from everyone, when we started this, there were like around 500, 600 people having access to databases. We said, before that, sorry. Before even starting all of that, the first thing is, how do we identify where all PII exists, right? We had databases for last 7 years. Everything is spread across from every place. Now, how do I identify, like someone could be storing phone number in a column named ID. And this exists all across if you have legacy system. Now, how do I identify where all PII data exists? What data exists offline on people's laptop? What exists in terms of Google Sheet, all the collaboration tools they use? Do we have third party where all our data goes? Because product, you guys can hear me, right? Product managers could have just used a third party to get some insights from how user use the app. And we may have been pushing a lot of users' data there as well. Okay. The one thing that we wanted to do is user segmentation. So we were in 110 cities. I wanted to be sure of someone in like Chennai city can only access Chennai data, not Bangalore data. Okay. All of that is something we wanted to do. So this was one massive exercise that we had to do. Then coming to database security, our aim was like 3 points, if I could just summarize. I wanted no one gets access to PII databases or columns. But you could say, hey, you could go ahead with encryption. I'm saying the way and the scale at which we operate, data at rest is there, but if I do data encryption on transit, that means every time I write a query, it has to open, decrypt, open, run, and do all of it. At the scale, it's not possible. So that's out of it. We had Analytics DB. We could say, hey, we're going to stop the replication strategy that we had on Analytics DB. So Analytics DB, where mostly everyone has access to, does not have PII data. But Analytics DB was set up years back. It has row-based replication strategy. Couldn't work it out. Like too much changes to do that. We wanted audit in terms of if someone goes rogue and tries to do something, how do we protect? Because security is all about being more preventive than reactive, right? So this is something, 3 things that I wanted to solve, but all the traditional approach didn't work. So what we did is we said, fine, everyone needs to have access to MySQL via 2FA, okay, on need-to-know basis. We use Duo, we set up a proxy in between, we said to access MySQL, you have to. Now there's accountability. If something ever goes wrong, we know who did it or who was a part of the whole thing. So credential sharing goes completely off. Then we set up a max-scale proxy. It's an open source proxy where we could say, hey, no one can query on PII columns like phone numbers, Aadhaar data, PAN data, all of those stuff. So now we say, we have accountability. We say, we know no one can query our data on PII column. So all is good. But there are valid use cases where people need to access databases, time-based exceptional because something broken in fraud. So what we did, we set up a pass-through proxy where you have access to full thing. And obviously, we cannot have auditing logging enabled on MySQL because it's going to be huge logs. So what we said in that pass-through proxy, we're going to log everything, what all the queries that user exists. The whole setup, what it did is there's no way someone can take my data out from the below manner. In the above, he can, but I know who did, when did, and how, right? So my databases is now something that's completely secured. Okay, data platform. This is major. So our pipeline looks something like this. We have events coming from databases, everything getting ingested into Kafka pipeline, logs, click trails, everything. Then we have our HDFS, where a lot of processing needs to happen. We had Hue for analytics. It's like Hue, Zdash, or anything that you could use just to run query and build analytics. And then we had consumers. Now it was like, okay, I have secured a database, but everything gets ingested into the Kafka to our data pipeline. Now that could be even, that could be even GDPR data, that could be payments data, all of it, right? The first thing I wanted to secure is Kafka itself. So I said, if there is a different topic where payments data is flowing, and I'm saying I'm going to restrict everything there, someone could write a broker and listen to all the data on the Kafka topic itself. So what we did is we use Kafka Connect with an RBAC control. You could use Apache Ranger also if you just want ACLs in place. So what we did is the first thing where the data comes in is we protected the Kafka pipelines itself with RBAC control itself completely. Then what we did is we went on the SDFS part where we did all the PII encryption. We wrote an UDF. We said all the PII data will be encrypted. So anything that gets ingested by default gets encrypted via that UDF that we wrote. And everything here is controlled by data platform team via Apache Ranger, where we have ACLs and policies and everything in place. And we know if someone is trying to do something else. On Hue, what we did is Hue we integrated with AD. AD, we had user segmentation by city-wise. These people are part of this city, this group, analytic, this country, all of this. And these are product people who can have this much access. So then we said, you cannot query anything apart from there from Hue itself. So we protected Hue, we protected the pipeline itself, and everything in place. So now there's no way, even there is PII data flowing in, everything comes out as encrypted, and we protect all of them together. Okay. Data platform, this is the same thing, just of what all things that we did. Okay, so here is something awesome. So what we figured out, we could have bad actors anytime in any of our companies, right? Where someone turning road or someone just for the fun sake having access to prod jumps, runs a gaming server, does all the XYZ things because they have a bit more super permissions on the production system itself. And what I thought is, let's fix this completely. But when I thought about doing this, we already had like 450 microservices. Now it's like anything that I do has to be done in all the services. And I cannot make everyone drop everything and have server-to-server authentication. So this was what I wanted, is a server-to-server authentication within a microservice architecture. How do I do it is the biggest problem. I wanted to have it with the minimum code change. I wanted it to be decentralized and scalable. That means if this is a server who's validating all the services within and it goes down, though my every service is up, my systems are down. So this cannot be the bottleneck for anything. Okay. Now what else we wanted is it cannot be a tier 1 service and it has to scale at whatever scale we move. The way I went about doing this is I said we're going to patch the Apache HTTP client and the Drop Wizard client, HTTP client. We told engineers, hey, you know what? In your services, you use annotations and use our client. Our client, our HTTP patch clients, it takes data from, so when initialized, it gets an access token from the server. It talks to the service B. Service B token can validate it. There's a scoping in place. There's versioning in place. All of that exists. Okay. And in case the server is down, service A can talk to service B with an expired token, provided service B can validate server is down. So this becomes a decentralized thing that we wanted to do. And this is now even going worst effect. If the malware even gets to a system, service discovery is a hard part for him. Even if he figures out that a service, payment service exists, for him to talk to that payment service, service will ask for an access token itself. And this is all abstracted from even developers. Now, even a developer has access to your production system. He can't do much because all services would need an access token to talk to, which is there in the patch client itself. But data security is way more than what I've just said. But this is what needs to be there in the database. And this, like exit process is one thing I'll just touch upon. Is like if someone has access to Mixpanel, New Relic, all of it, and he leaves the company, and you don't have a proper process set, and he still can access that data. And it could be your Apple Store and Google Store as well. So you got to look into all more things before doing that. There are key metrics in terms of no one should have access to your PII data. If someone does, how would you audit it in real time? Okay, and you should have alert. So it's basically like this. If you have security like this, you're gonna be ending something like that, burning a lot of more money. That's all I had. I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Shadab. Okay, we have time for one or two questions, and then we break for lunch. Yeah, one down here.
So hi. So you just mentioned that you have UDFs on your HDFS layer. Hello. Yeah.
Yep.
You just mentioned that you have UDFs written to encrypt data, PII data. Can you give us more information on that? Basically more information on how you've controlled that and made sure it happens on each write or each read.
So the first exercise, the data discovery exercise that we did, okay, we figured out where data exists and which are all the PII columns that exist, okay. And for going forward, what we said is whenever a DB is created, someone has to create a JIRA in terms of what are the PII columns, and whenever that table gets onboarded to data platform, we know the PII column. Now we know these columns are PII columns. The UDF used to see if this column exists in the table schema, it used to encrypt that whole thing. And there was a proper key rotation policy also kept in place in case something goes wrong.
Okay, there'll be one more question, but just before that, there is Shadab and I think Bhargav are going to be doing a birds of feather session at 3 p.m. on anomaly detection at scale for data security. If you're interested to continue the conversation, it's in the BOF area. One last question before we go. Go ahead.
So in terms of the complete pipeline processing, right from data ingestion till modeling and deriving the output, this PA aspect plays a critical role.
Yeah.
So how are we handling that? At what stage? Because the moment you start encrypting the data at the first step, right, at times this data itself becomes the attributes of the model that I'm going to.
So that's the point. I'm saying if you have tagged this like Aadhaar card, PAN number, phone number, emails, okay, your data model should not be, so the way it has been set up is that we take this, so this is not much information that would help your model much, okay. No, I agree. So, but I'm saying, so we are not encrypting at Kafka layer. We are saying encryption happens before it's there in your Hue or whatever visual tool that you use. So it's not your Kafka, it's all unencrypted, but ACLs and RBAC is put in place. Your HDFS is all unencrypted. It's just that someone, when queries from a platform, what he gets is all that data is unencrypted form. So this helped us even all the old dashboard that existed using format preserving encryption, they don't break even. So everything was stored there.
We continue the discussion on how data privacy is critical for robust data management after the lunch also. So keep your questions.